everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
Today we're taking a look at the newest game from Bad Comet, Wondrous Creatures. So Bad Comet has released games. They really became known when they did Serengeti. And one of the things about Serengeti was it had these animal meeples, so many different animals with different colorful things. It got mixed reviews. I think you liked it, Mike, more than the rest of us.
I did. Yeah, I did like it more than most. And it definitely had flaws.
But then last year they came out with
Life of the Amazonia.
Life of the Amazonias, which like a bag builder, a pool building game. And that one got much more stellar reviews. In fact, I still see that one being played consistently at conventions and was on many best of 2023 lists. So this is the newest one. They are still have cute little meeples. And in this case, though, you are a person going to an island and discovering wondrous creatures. There is a ton of art and a ton of theme in this game. We're going to take a look at how it plays, and then we'll be right back. There's a lot going on in this game, so we'll just try to cover the basics. Each player is going to choose a color, and you're going to pick 3 agents that match that. One of those agents has a magnetic back, and that's where you'll put your leader. They get to ride that. It just snaps onto place there. Each leader has a special ability. So you'll take your color board that matches you. If I was playing blue, I'd take this board. Here's my leader's special ability, which is not unlocked, actually. So I get one of these trophies down here. You're also keeping track of your resources, the fruit, coral, flowers, and mushrooms. And over the course of the game, you're collecting eggs. They'll be placed up here at the top of your board. On a player's turn, they have some basic actions that they take. You take one basic action. One of your actions can be place one of your agents on the board. You can place them in these open spots. There are mountains, but if you go on a mountain, you have to pay a resource to go there. But you decide where you go. If a spot you go to has an egg, you will collect that egg. Also, if players have nets, they can use these nets to yoink an egg off an adjacent spot, or some of these spots have little white circles. You can take the special ability of that, which might give you extra resources, recharge eggs, etc. After you place this, you're often going to be next to resources. Let's say I had gone here. I would be next to 2 of the flower resource. I can take 2 flower resources. I can take 1 flower resource and a card, or 2 cards. At the top of the board is a display, the wilderness it's called, of cards, and each card matches one of the types. So I could take this card instead of taking one of the resources. That's one way to get more cards into my deck. Once you've placed all 3 of these, you're not going to be able to do it again. So another basic action you can take is called recharge, where you'll take these all off the board. You get to play some cards, which I'll talk about in a second, but it opens up spaces for you to place them again. It also will move this time tracker up here on the board, which not only can give you nets and helps push the end of the game, but when you get to these spots, will basically spawn more eggs across the map. Another basic action is to play 1 or 2 cards. You'll start with some cards in your hand, and you can collect more as the game goes by. You simply pay the resource costs on these. You put them in front of you. They're going to give you victory points at the end of the game, but also some of them give you an immediate benefit. This gives you 2 nets. This one gives you 2 points for each flower habitat icon in your reserve. Reserve are all the cards face up in front of you. Some cards have the recharge thing on them, this symbol here, and those only go off when you pull your people off the board. So as you pull everybody off, this one, for example, lets me draw a card and get an egg of that species. This gives me any resource and flip 2 of my eggs. Some give you permanent abilities, like every time I get an egg, get a victory point. Each time you discard a card, gain a victory point. By the way, I should mention, you notice victory points are in brown and red. Red are end game, brown are during the game. That's because as you move on the track, as you pass different spots, you can get bonuses. Other eggs have magic charges on them. They show you how many charges come on them. You'll place that many on the card, and you can pull those off anytime as a free action to do it. And there are some things that are going to let you recharge these cards. And then some cards are just endgame scoring that will give you points for various things. Your final basic action is claiming an achievement. When someone claims an achievement, you have to be able to meet it. And so when you meet these achievements, Many of them are symbols on cards. This one might have, you need 3 butterflies on cards or 6 butterflies on cards. If you meet those, you can do it. If, let's say I had this one, but I only had 2 fish on card, if I have a fish egg in front of me, I can flip it to hatch it, which means I can't use it again unless I have a way to unflip it, but it can help me meet these. When you meet the requirements, you are going to take one of these off, giving you the bonus. So, hey, I want 3 points. You'll place it on this, which will give you endgame points, and you'll take one of these trophies off the board. Trophies are worth 3 points themselves. And they also trigger the end of the game. When all the trophies are gone, that triggers the end of the game. You can only do each of these achievements once, and they have 2 sides based on whether you're playing with 2, 3, or 4 players. So that's basically the game. Don't forget, each person has a special ability that as soon as you get one achievement, it becomes unlocked, which means when you put out that person and it matches the card, you'll get whatever the bonus is here. When your captain's place, gain an adjacent egg, or flip up to 2 eggs in your reserve. And that's their ability that they have. And you'll keep going until the end of the game. There's a lot of points. You'll get points from achievements, points from all the cards that you played in your reserve, points from trophies, and endgame scoring cards, and whoever has the most points is the winner. All right, so Mike, the components and the theming of this game are pretty fantastic. I like the art, and I like it. This is one of the few times, and I hate saying this in games, I would be very annoyed, I think, to not have the upgraded components. They're just little wooden pieces, but in particular in this game, the eggs, I think I need the eggs to be, I don't care about the nets and whatever, those other tokens, but the eggs in particular, since you're pulling them from a bag and stuff, it's a very small upgrade and an easy one to get, I think, for the game. I'm just mentioning that I like them a lot, but I think the artwork, and I think, I'm not 100% sure because I didn't go through the deck, I think every card is different.
I believe you're correct, and I think it's all the work of a single artist as well. It may be 2, but I thought it was only 1. It's in the rule book. I don't think so just amazing artwork, and I do agree with you specifically with the egg component because you are kind of pulling them out of a bag in at least some of the times. The other upgraded stuff is certainly nice, although I don't think it's as necessary as it is for the eggs. But the theme you mentioned, I do like that this is more of kind of a fantasy or a fantastical type of a theme because they've come with 2 nature games back to back with the Wild Serengeti and Life of the Amazonia. And this actually in some ways harkens back to the first game of theirs, the Shaolia, where it had a little bit more of a kind of a magical, fantasy type of a feel to it. So looks great. I love the creatures that they came up with. I thought they were very, very thought out and clever.
Yeah, so there's the only thing I don't love about the production is some of the symbology I found a little bit hard to see at certain points and differentiate, mostly involving the eggs. Does that mean take an extra egg or does that mean flip an egg? And this is minor, but that would be the only complaint I would have on that. And I mean, it's because of the nature of the game, you're going to have to be constantly looking at the cards. So I'll be like, what does that card do again? It's hard for me to see all the way from over here, but that's lots of games like this.
Yeah, I agree that is a thing that's a lot of the cards have quite a bit of text, although I think they have it at a perfectly reasonable font size. It's not too small. It's not so large that you don't see the beauty of the card still. Some of the iconography should have been a little bit, or could have been a little bit clearer. I'm thinking specifically of when you're pulling a card from the wilderness, which are the face-up cards, and when you're getting a card from the deck. It's a slight difference, and once you get it, I think you get it. But you're right, it probably could have been a little clearer.
Mechanically, you mentioned the wilderness. I think it's a little weird. The whole wipe only wipes half the cards, but a double wipe wipes all the cards on the iconography. And I'm sure that someone online was like, "That's pretty clever." And I was thinking, who cares? It just feels like an extra step. But other than that, the cards are the heart of the game. If you're someone who likes games like Terraforming Mars or Earth or Ark Nova because of the building the tableau of cards in front of you, That's what this game is about. I mean, don't get me wrong, putting pieces out for the resources is going to be the thing that draws people into the game. And getting these, the goals, the achievements, is the point of the game. But in between that, the card mechanism, I think, is the strongest part of the game. I particularly like the recharge cards. It gives me a strong reminder, and the magic cards, feel very similar to a mechanism that Vindication introduced, where they gave you magic things. You take the tokens off, and then you can recharge them. But the recharge cards make the recharge action, which in most games is one of the most boring actions, very interesting and fun.
Yeah, you've nailed on the head some of my favorite parts of the game as well. Like you said, the thing that's going to get the people that are around the table looking are going to be placing out those really amazing looking wooden creatures on the board and just the look of the game. But the meat of the game is that card play, and so when you're placing out the creatures, really all you're doing, well, not all, but what you're mostly doing is gathering resources to be able to buy and play these cards. And so there are a few other things you can do on the board that trigger actions. But for the most part, you're gaining resources really to use these cards. And it's about efficiency, right? So, one of the actions is playing cards from your hand into your tableau, and you can play one or two. The thing is, anytime you're not playing two, the same turn feels like an inefficient turn. And I'll do it, I'll do it on occasion when it's kind of a desperate thing, but you always want to be playing those cards out in ways that can, of course, lead towards the objectives you need to win the game, or at least to trigger the end game. But just the synergy of the cards and the way that they will sometimes play off each other. And the two favorite of my favorite types are along with you, the ones that you get for that recharge action that can trigger some really powerful effects, and the cards that have I don't remember exactly the terminology. You basically get little magic tokens you put on it, and you can take them off to trigger it. And there are ways that you can refill those cards too. Really, really clever.
So there's a couple. I have some negative things about the game, and I want to be clear that I really like the game, but there's just some minor things I noticed. The biggest one, and these go hand in hand, is that I don't want to play this game with anyone who has analysis paralysis and takes a while to read every card in the wilderness every time they're taking one, which will help you play optimally, but at the same time, it does slow the game down. And then second is the game is just a little longer than it should be. It's just a little longer. Now, I have a fix for that, which is just to take 2 trophies off the board. I think that fixes that completely, and the game goes at a perfect length. But the game is very fun. I also think I'm only going to play with a max of 3, just so there's less downtime between turns. I think the 3-player game of this is fantastic. So this is just something to know going in, and for some people that extra length won't be a problem. But I think it could be, the box says 40 to 80 minutes, and I'm kind of going, not really. I think it's close. It's more of 1 to 2 hours, is what I would say.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And quite honestly, that's been an issue, and it is an issue with the last 2 games that the publisher put out. I felt like Wild Serengeti was quite a bit too long. Life of the Amazonia is right on the edge. It's definitely not short, though. And this is the same way. It feels like a couple of rounds too long. And like you said, it's very easy to adjust that just by removing, the medals are really one of the main ways you're going to trigger the end of the game. If you go too many rounds, that last round basically just becomes a timer because you remove a medal every time that someone would move forward on that track. But it is a touch long, and I do feel like you get the full experience of the game before the game is over. So you're not really going to lose anything. You might be able to pull off 1 or 2 more really big turns, but you're not really doing something that it's not a game that you like peak at the very end. I think that you can hit that peak a couple of rounds before the end of the game, and that to me makes it feel a little bit long.
Now, one thing that is not a negative, but it's something that I think will take you a game or two maybe to get used to, You got to realize the importance of these achievements. They are so many victory points. Getting one unlocks your power. And I'm not sure actually how I feel about powers yet. They're interesting, but you're only going to use it a few times over the course of the game. Since you're only playing it 1 out of every 3 placement actions, which is probably 1 out of every 6 turns, or 7 turns, because you got to pull them back and you're playing cards and stuff or whatever. So, and they're not very powerful. So they're fine. I don't dislike them. I just don't get super excited about it. They seem cool until you realize how infrequently you use them. But anyway, you want to get these achievements quickly, but you also want to hold off on them, but you can't afford to not get achievements. You will lose. They're very critical, so that's one thing I would point out to people who are new to the game. And the other thing is endgame scoring cards, of which there's not a ton in the deck, but they're in the deck. You cannot ignore them either. If you see one, you need to seriously consider, should I take it? They're not overpowered, but if you have no endgame scoring and you don't go for achievements and you just go for points during the game, you will lose. You can get a lot of points during the game through various ways, but the other stuff is just too big. At least this is in my opinion.
And I echo that. Yeah, absolutely. Those cards are crucial. And it's interesting. I like they kind of do this in 2 different ways, and you've mentioned them both. One is through what types of cards are you focusing on, and the other one are those achievements, because the way they work, as I'm sure you covered in the overview, is that there's tiers of them, right? And the better that you complete that achievement, so it might be collect a particular amount of this particular symbol. They'll have tiers, right? Where if you collect 3, you can claim that achievement and you'll get the lowest number of points. But if you wait and you collect 5 and lock that one in, it's more points. And if you wait and you collect 7, but you can easily look around at everyone's tableau and see, oh gosh, they're right with me on this. I know they're working towards that too. Do I just take the other one now, just move on to something else, or do I really push and fight against that person and try to get, because the point differences are significant, right? It's a big difference between the top and the bottom tier. And so I like that there's some player agency there. And I also do like that this is a tableau building game, right? An engine building game. And in those types of games, you want to get the cards that keep your engine going, that are fun, that are cool, that let you do cool things. Yes, but if you ignore those endgame scoring cards, like you said, you're going to lose, because there's points that are to be made there, and they can be very significant. So again, I like the fact that most of those things are player driven.
There's so much I like about this game. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, and I want to be clear, the only thing that's dropping it from an 8.5 is it's just a little too long. And maybe as time goes by, my rating will go up, because I love the production. I love the placement. I love the idea of you're placing a 2-hex creature on the board and getting the stuff next to it, and the net mechanism to grab something next to that is just so fun and so cool. It's just an interesting way to gather resources / cards. I love that the deck is full of all different cards, and there's 5 different types of cards, or 4 or 5 different types. They all do interesting things, and it's fun to both build the engine and then go for those achievements and get points. It just feels like the game has this constant forward progression, which is enjoyable. It never feels tight, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like you're full of resources either, so you gotta, make sure you're playing well. It just hits that sweet spot for me. So the only thing that's kept me from giving it an 8.5 is that it's a little too long, and also I wish the special powers were more pronounced. There is, just as it has a heads up, there's a couple little modules which I've looked at. One gives your creatures a 1-time per game power, which is fine, but it's also another very minor power. And then there's Wondrous Creatures, which I've not messed with. I mean, the big giant creatures, which I haven't messed with, but that sounds interesting. But as a 3-player game or a 2-player game, I find this to be just phenomenally fun and different. It's taking mechanisms that already exist and building upon them, so I like it.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and give it the 8.5, Tom. I think it's excellent. I think yeah, I know. I think it earns that seal just because what it does well, it does so well. And I do agree. I think it would be actually even higher for, well, not I know it would be a bit higher for me if that length wasn't an issue, because again, this is not something that is new for the publisher. I really think that they need to They've actually announced their next game, and it looks much shorter. But that's something I think they need to think about in the future, because it can be a factor that keeps people from playing the games if they're just too long. Luckily, this one's easy enough to kind of mitigate that. And the AP is an issue. I would play this at 4 if it was with 3 other players I knew that played quickly, that were not going to read each and every card that came out in the wilderness. We're going to glance at them, get some ideas of things, and then just play their turn. But I agree with you that there is an issue with AP playing with particular players, and that also keeps it a little bit lower than it might have been otherwise. But it's still excellent, an 8.5 for me, and this publisher just really has my attention, because they're doing things, like you said, that are a little different. This doesn't feel like another game that I can even think of out there. It has elements of other games, but this is its own unique, wondrous beast.
Well, there you go, folks. That is Wondrous Creatures. Ignore Mike's bad pun there. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Mike Delicio.
And we are collecting eggs. Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. And you can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you, and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.